Hello and welcome to World Talks on TVP World with me, Hashim Kumar. Hungary is approaching a crucial April parliamentary election with Prime Minister Viktor Orbán challenged by opposition leader Peter Magyar. The campaign is marked by allegations of smear tactics, warnings of Russian-style interference, and renewed US involvement, including President Donald Trump's endorsement of Orban and Secretary of State Marco Rubio's upcoming visit. To break this down, we're joined by István Hegedűs, chairman of the Hungarian Europe Society. Mr. Hegedűs, welcome to TVP World, and thank you very much for taking the time. So, the elections are coming up in April. At the moment, Peter Magyar's TISA party is leading, up to 16% is the difference in some polls. Does this reflect what's going to happen in the elections?
Well, a lot of things can still happen in 2 months. For example, just yesterday, a video was shown from an unknown source. Just the viewers could see a room with a bed, and it turned out today that it's probably a provocation against the leading candidate, Peter Magyar, who had a sexual affair, a consensual sexual affair with his previous girlfriend. So probably in the very last 2 months, we will see a lot of accusations, spear campaigns from the government side against the main challenger. So it's not real international politics, I'm sorry to say, what happens today and what happened yesterday, but it's very much something what might influence the outcome of the elections. But you're right, according to the polls, TISA party leads with a convincing majority.
Understood. Now, you mentioned the video, and Peter Magyar got in front of this, really, and he told everyone to expect this, and he labelled it Russian smear tactics. Now, Russia and Viktor Orbán have had a relationship. I mean, President Putin and Orban have had a relationship which seems quite close. Do you believe that there is a Russian influence that's taking place in the run-up to the elections?
I think that the Orban government does not really need Russian interference, because how they formulate and frame news, this is very much similar to the Russian way. It's not exactly the Russian propaganda, but it's somehow prepared for the Hungarian audience. But the main argument is, just like in Russia, that it's Ukraine which has provoked the war. So the blame goes upon Zelensky himself personally, and the Russian and the Ukrainian government. And it's only the opposition which has emphasized that 4 years ago the unprovoked attack, has come from Russia. But in the everyday news, the pro-governmental media, which still has an overwhelming reach out in the Hungarian public, does not need direct Russian influence, because the Hungarian propagandists know exactly, and maybe know better, how to use the misinformation and fake news for the Hungarian public.
Understood. Now, you say that Orban doesn't really need Russian interference or Russian influence, but they do have a number of common platforms, don't they? You mentioned Ukraine and whose fault that war is, or who's responsible for it. In fact, Orban called Zelensky an enemy of Hungary because Zelensky suggested that the European Union stop Hungary buying Russian oil. How is that attitude by Viktor Orbán going down with the ordinary man or woman in the street?
Well, I would say that his rhetoric has been sharpened in the last weeks against Ukraine. But in general, he probably decided to go on with this card, to use Trump's word, that what cards do you have in your hands? And he's using the so-called Ukrainian card against the opposition for domestic reasons in Hungary. Of course, it's very complicated for him within the European Union. In the European Council, he's alone or almost alone, because even the Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico doesn't support his anti-Ukrainian stance. It means that he is relatively alone, and that is why he's waiting internationally so much for an American support. But it's very doubtful whether Donald Trump would come to Hungary personally, in person, to support Orban. And although he sent a tweet message or another social media message endorsing Orban, that's not exactly the same message what Orban wanted to have.
No, but nonetheless, Donald Trump has endorsed Orban very strongly. And we've got Secretary of State Marco Rubio going to Budapest. I mean, both of those are fairly strong indications that Orban has American support. So we have a strange situation here. We've got Americans supporting Orban and Russians supporting Orban. So how much chance does Peter Magyar really have?
Both supports come on because of the same logic, that Orban has very good relationship with strongmen. He is the only guy from Europe, and not only from the European Union, but more generally, who is going to fly to Washington, D.C. to participate at the meeting of the Board of Peace. And nobody else is going there from Europe. So most of the European capitals have a distance from the Trumpian position and political line and from this new body. But Orban is a strong supporter of Trump, and yes, Trump supports Orban. However, Marco Rubio is not Donald Trump. It's an official state visit, and the foreign affairs minister, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, is not the president of the United States. So this visit might become a short and very official one, not exactly the same what Trump would mean for Orban. Even more, Donald Trump, just like in many other European countries, is not so popular at all in Hungary. And the same with Vladimir Putin. So the support of these two strongmen might not help Orban much at the elections, because the domestic campaign is mostly about domestic economic affairs, healthcare, corruption, etc.
Mr. Hegedüs, in the last few seconds we have left, so very quickly, if you would, please, what would Peter Magyar do differently to rectify domestic problems?
I think he would do a lot of things very differently. And regarding our topic, international affairs or foreign policy, European policy might change a lot, because he might join the European mainstream opposing Putin's war. And he might hesitate how much he supports Ukraine. But in general, he would really change the rhetoric. And if he has enough political courage, he can really get rid of the Orbanist sort of regime change, what we desperately need in Hungary.
Understood, Mr. Hegedüs. Thank you so much for sharing your analysis with our audience. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye now.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to the end of this episode of World Talks. Don't go away. Lots more coming up. Goodbye.